Hi, Jeannie. How are you?
I'm good, Elise. How are you?
I'm good. Good to see you.
It's good to see you too. How's things?
Pretty good.
Good, good, good.
You
I'll
should
be over
stop
in
in and
city.
see me.
I will be. We should have one of them meetings down at where tomorrow. I'll be in
Well,
City Hall.
I'm not in tomorrow. I've
Yeah,
lined up a
thanks.
few appointments. I know, but I'll be there Thursday and Friday.
Oh, all right. I'll stop by Thursday. I just have to
Okay.
get my hair done on Thursday.
Okay.
That's all. All right, that's good. Good.
Yeah. Come see me.
I definitely will.
Okay.
Okay. Lisa, you there?
Yes, I am. You're all set.
We're gonna start. Okay, thank you. All right, good evening. Welcome to the September meeting of the Community Development and Housing Committee. Um, it is now 6:34 and I will call the meeting to order. Thank you all for being here. I have a couple guests here. Welcome, everyone. Okay, relatively short agenda here. So, first order of business is an update from Housing Initiative, Bartek.
Anyone? Okay, so by request, I have one update that I want to share with the committee with respect to 19A. So as you might be familiar, 19A is a tool that municipalities have to acquire abandoned properties. And in order to qualify as abandoned, a property has to meet certain statutory criteria. And so I have been pursuing some 19A actions against several properties. The city of Kingston has never successfully, or even I shouldn't say successfully, has never initiated these before, so it's new. It's also not a very commonly used tool, but there are 5 properties that are currently subject to 19A actions. And it's possible that at least some of these will have a court ruling as early as this month. But again, it's a judicial process, and so we're at the mercy of our judges here. I just want to mention these 5 properties are pretty evenly spread across the city. They are on Westchester, they are on Courts, they are on Lucas Boulevard and Hunter Streets. So that is the update there. Any questions? And I should say I'm retaining outside counsel to help with these actions.
Well, let's just hope that the verdicts come through soon.
Yeah.
So yes, the one particular house that I have in mind in Ward 1 seems to be deteriorating more every day.
Yes. So, and that's often the case with obviously that's all.
Of course.
Yes.
Yes.
What happens after the court makes its ruling? What are the next steps?
Right. So then there's a court ruling, and then the property would become part of the city would become an owner of that property by the court ruling. And then the sale of that property would be subject to the disposition policy. And so depending on the amount of back tax threshold, the land bank would have the first right of purchase. If it's over that tax threshold, which I believe is 120,000, then it would go to auction.
Are these properties salvageable?
Yeah, but I haven't been, but these do appear. So, yeah.
Where were
Just
the
in need of-
properties again?
Just in need of a good rehab. Sorry?
Where were the properties?
Westchester, Courts, Lucas, Boulevard, and Hunter.
Okay.
Yep. So the second update, as I had mentioned last year during the budget process, my department has taken over responsibilities for the in-rem foreclosure process. I have spent the better part of this year organizing that process, ordering title searches, and preparing actions against the properties that are in tax foreclosure. And so the first batch of those properties will likely, the notification process will likely start in a few weeks for those properties. At this time, there's over 100 properties that are on the foreclosure list. My guess is, based on experience of other municipalities, is that upon the notification, a lot of these properties will be redeemed, meaning that they will be paid off. But I just wanted to update this committee that process is started. Yeah.
Are any of those properties and people living in those homes?
Yeah, so they're a mix. So they're a mix of vacant lots. Some properties that haven't quite been abandoned but are clearly on their way toward abandonment. And then yes, some are owner occupied or do appear to be owner occupied.
Sarah?
But Jeannie can go first. Her hand was up before mine.
Sorry, Gene, go ahead.
That's okay. Good evening, everybody. I'm just wondering if that was a limited time that you had that the properties were vacant before you going in there to take them over?
For the abandoned properties,
Yes, was
Yeah,
there a
we-
time?
there's no set time in the statute. They basically have to meet like certain criteria. Like they're, like, for instance, they're not secured, right? There's the entry isn't secured. And they're based on the building department's assessment, they're clearly abandoned, right? And pose a nuisance. But it's not necessarily a certain number of years that they have to be abandoned. That makes sense.
It does, and the second half of that is, who was responsible for the insurance on these properties at this time if somebody was squatting or something and they happen to get hurt?
So these properties aren't owned by the city. I mean, they've been abandoned. I can only assume that there's no insurance coverage on these properties.
So will
Thank
be
you.
our responsibility then?
No,
No, because the city doesn't own.
So,
but upon ownership, we would be able to do a process whereby we secure the building, right? Take out the water meter. There's still one in there. And do all the things that we normally do when we acquire vacant properties.
okay, so apparently the owners have no insurance, I'm presuming, right? So
I mean, in some-
all bets are off if somebody gets hurt,
I
right?
mean, in most cases, it's the owner's deceased and long deceased, and there's no kin to take over the property.
Mm. Go ahead.
My question just was for the general public, just a reminder to us and to the public, at what point does the house go into foreclosure?
So basically, it's 3 years.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody? Anything else?
And I should also say, when the notifications are sent out that an action is about to be started against a property, there is a date given by which payment will be accepted, the redemption.
And do people need to pay in full, or can they set up a payment plan, or
So
what's- what is
at this point, because they're in RAM, they're no longer eligible for a payment plan. They would have to pay it off in full.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah, that being said, I mean, for all other cases, we're obviously, most property owners are eligible for payment plan.
Right.
They just have to do it before they get to this point.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Vortex, don't go away. You're number 2 on the list here.
Okay, so.
Right to council program, legal services.
So I'm pleased to have Legal Services of the Hudson Valley here with us tonight. So one of the things that I'm quite proud of is that with the ARPA funds, we were able to start a right to counsel program here in the city of Kingston with Legal Services of the Hudson Valley. This is an item that we put out for requests for proposals for service providers, and Legal Services of the Hudson Valley was the recipient of those funds. And so in total, the total ARPA allocation, so everyone is aware, it was $500,000. And that program, and we'll be able to describe more, that program is on the current trajectory, might sunset early next year, because that original allotment of funding obviously wasn't going to last forever and is now running. And I'll invite Legal Services of the Valley up shortly, but I think my intention with starting this program is so frequently for the right to counsel program, I would receive, as we all do, right, tenant questions and pleas for help, right? And there wouldn't really be a place where I could confidently send them and know that they will get an answer or the services that they need. And so this is why this program has been so helpful, not only to me, obviously, but to tenants. And I should say, part of that request for proposals that I originally had Also solicited legal help, which we called small landlord professionalization. So basically like legal help for small landlords to ensure that they knew their responsibilities as well. We did not find a service provider for that part of the original RFP, but I just wanted to mention that as well. So that, I don't know, Erin, do you want to come up and talk about the program? Everyone? Yes.
Sorry.
Luckily, there are chairs available.
Yes,
for you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us. My name is Jill Bradshaw Soto. I'm the Chief Program Officer at Legal Services of Hudson Valley. For those of you who may not know, we are the civil legal services provider. We provide free legal assistance for income eligible clients in a variety of civil areas. Our largest area of need and practice is housing, including landlord tenant. We have 10 offices, one of which is in Kingston. On behalf of our CEO, Rachel Halpern, I just really want to thank Bartek for his vision on this project and his trust in us to fund us to do this work. It's something that we do, that we've done for years and that we do well and that we're experts in. Tonight, we're just going to talk to you about the program, as the program is going to be sunsetting, as Bartek said, in March. And we're hoping to start the conversations now about how we can continue to fund the project and work together. So Erin's going to speak. She is the head of our office in Kingston. And I think you all know her. Christopher Switzer is our director of housing, and he oversees our housing programs in all of our offices, and he's also an expert in housing. And Constance Donahue is a supervising attorney in our Kingston office, and she's just going to talk a bit about the boots on the ground perspective and give you an idea of some of the clients we've served and the outcomes that we've obtained. So.
Hello, good evening. Thank you for welcoming us to your meeting. So as Jill mentioned, I am the attorney in charge of our Ulster County Office of Legal Services of the Hudson Valley. We are currently located at 918 Ulster Avenue in Kingston. So as Bartek mentioned, in 2023, we were selected to be the legal service provider for the Cities Rights Council initiative. This initial funding came from the American Rescue Plan Act. That's set to expire, as you heard, March of 2026. But this special funding has really enabled us to staff close to 2 full-time attorneys to ensure the City of Kingston receives dedicated legal assistance when the residents' housing rights are at stake. In order to be eligible for the program, you must be a Kingston resident. You must have a housing-related legal issue, and you must be income eligible, which for this program is at or below 120% of the area median income, and also eligible for legal services assistance. Otherwise, there's a few other eligibility criteria. But in order to open a case with our office, the resident completes an intake. The intake is assigned to an attorney to evaluate and determine what type of legal assistance is going to be provided. And with this Kingston specific funding, we were really able to develop a program that provides city residents with the information, resources, advice, representation that they need to exercise their housing rights. The program is really broad. Some of the issues that we've seen include eviction proceedings, voucher terminations, habitability claims for repair or lack of essential services, claims under the Emergency Tenant Protection Act, and also discrimination and fair housing issues. But in addition to the housing assistance, we're able to take a holistic approach to each case. If necessary, we'll refer clients internally to receive in-kind assistance for other civil legal issues that they're facing. An example of this would be if a household is not receiving all the benefits that they're entitled to, maybe they're not receiving their SNAP benefits, or they've been denied for disability income. We're able to refer that case to our attorney that assists with public benefits denials. Or if a landlord is evicting a tenant because of a violation of the lease, and that violation of the lease has to do with a domestic violence incident, we may be able to assert the survivor's rights and preserve their housing, but also connect them to the attorney in-house that works at family court, maybe help them get orders of protection or deal with issues of custody or that sort of thing. And by taking this approach, it really helps stabilize households and often prevents any potential future evictions. So since the Rights Council program inception in November of 2023, and this report goes through the end of June 2025, we've opened more than 280 cases. And we've closed a total of 200 so far. And these numbers are going up daily. More intakes are coming in every day. We're closing cases. So the next report is due to be run at the end of September. So we'll have new updated numbers. But of those 200 cases that we've closed, 94 of those cases were advice or brief service. So what that typically means is that a resident is coming to us with an issue that maybe isn't in court yet. Litigation hasn't started. Maybe they've received a rent demand or a termination notice, or maybe they have an issue, they believe there was a rent overcharge. So those are all issues that we can deal with, hopefully, prior to court and with some attorney advocacy. So additionally, more than 50% of the cases that we've handled so far during this contract is where the tenant was facing eviction. And this is really where we see the need. And this is the place where we find that our assistance has the most impact. Between January 2024 and June 2025, our office represented 106 eviction cases in Kingston City Court. Of these cases, 102 of them had successful outcomes where we were able to prevent or delay an eviction. That's a 96% success rate in preventing homelessness. And about half of those 200 cases that we've closed and reported so far, regardless of whether they're in court or before court, they had to do with non-payment of rent. And in New York State, if a tenant is in arrears and they're being evicted, they're able to pay their arrears up until the date of eviction, and they're able to maintain their tenancy. So a lot of the times we need to negotiate more time for the tenant, and we can help them come up with back rent either with grants or they, come up with it on their own. And so one thing I wanted to point out is from 2024 to 2025, LSHV provided $177,000 from various internally sourced rental arrears programs. So that's private foundation funds. We work with foundations that's state funds such as the ERAP funds or STEP funds, and also the Ulster County Eviction Prevention Program. So all of that money went directly to Kingston landlords. Additionally, we partnered with DSS, agencies in the community like Catholic Charities, Family of Woodstock, other community orgs, and we came up with additional $75,000 to prevent evictions. And that's on top of the $30,000 that clients were able to self-pay to overcome the arrears. So the total, I just want to highlight that number. So over $280,000 of rental arrears went back to Kingston landlords during this time period. And this, the alternative to that is a resident is evicted and the landlord has a judgment. And oftentimes those judgments are not able to be collected. So we've saved housing and we've, tried to make landlords whole where possible. In addition, we're seeing an increase of holdover evictions, and these cases are usually dealing with lease renewals or terminations. This year, approximately 24% of the cases that were filed in Kingston City Court are holdover cases, and that's up from years past. So given the lack of affordable housing within the city of Kingston and the county as a whole, keeping folks housed is really critical to stabilizing the community, reducing the trauma of eviction, homelessness, and the state and specifically the city of Kingston have put in place some really important laws that are necessary to help tenants enforce their rights. But without attorneys and programs like ours, the laws are not really effective. So I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Christopher Schweitzer, Director of Housing for our agency. He's going to talk a little bit about some of the laws.
Yeah, so thank you for having us tonight. Let me first start by trying to put some of those numbers into context for you. So Kingston City Court makes up 35% of all eviction cases in all of Ulster County, right? So the need is clearly in Kingston City, in Ulster County. And like Aaron said, our office had a 96% success rate in representing tenants in cases in Kingston City Court, right? So we've got an incredibly high success rate. If you compare that to New York City, where they've had a right to counsel now for almost 10 years, New York City reports an 89% success rate, right? So we're at this point showing a higher success rate than what they get in New York City after about 10 years of results. Similarly, we're saying we're representing about 30% of the cases in all of Kingston City Court over the last year and a half. In the Bronx, where they have an actual right to counsel law, they're getting 31%. So with an actual law, they're getting 1% more of representation in their city courts. So we're right there in terms of representation with only 2 attorneys in your entire city. And I also want to highlight the money that Aaron's talking about putting back in and reinvesting with your landlords here in Kingston, right? We're not just paying money directly to Kingston landlords. We are first evaluating that the rent rates are correct, right? That landlords getting the money they're entitled to, that the apartments are habitable, right? That clients are getting all the benefits that they're entitled to before any of that happens. So it's not just paying money directly to landlords, it's making sure that tenants get everything they're entitled to before any of that money gets paid. So then let's talk about the value of lawyers in these cases, right? So since 2019, the state, Kingston itself, Ulster County have made tremendous strides in terms of affordable housing, in terms of the laws that protect tenants, right? The Housing Stability and Tenant Protection Act, which has been all of the news since 2019, was a huge overhaul to tenant laws, made the laws much more favorable in the state, right? Enabled Kingston to pass the Emergency Tenant Protection Act as well. The Tenant Dignity Act allowed tenants to affirmatively sue their landlords for conditions in need of repairs, seeking an order of repairs, seeking rent abatements. Multiple residence law for the first time in the end of 2019, tenants were able to say, if an apartment doesn't have a valid certificate of occupancy outside of New York City, they no longer have to pay rent until the landlord is actually in compliance with certificate of occupancy or no longer renting an illegal apartment, right? De-incentivizing renting illegal apartments. And Kingston itself has also passed additional laws, right? Good cause eviction law passed last year was a huge step towards tenant protections. But these laws are difficult to enforce without attorneys. And Kingston has basically an alphabet soup of types of housing throughout the city. I work in all 7 of our counties, and Kingston is really unique in the types of housing it has in the city. You have low-income housing tax credit, you have ESHI, you have Mitchell-Lama, you have SPOA, you have project-based, you have a housing authority that underwent a streamlined voluntary conversion. Right? Imagine a tenant's head in court spinning around all of these acronyms without a lawyer there to explain things to them, right? And 90% of landlords are represented. So tables aren't really fair. So you can see that passing all of these laws is fantastic. Having all of these tenant protections, wonderful. But if there's no one in court to help the tenant and to make sure that those laws are accurately enforced, these things start to go by the wayside. And there's a really great example of this. After Kingston passed good cause eviction, in the first couple of weeks of good cause eviction being in effect, we had a single mother 6 children who was facing eviction without cause. And we found out that her apartment was actually newly subject to good cause eviction. She had received a termination notice about 2 or 3 months prior. And her first court date was after she was served court papers. Her first court date was after good cause eviction was enacted. We went through all the papers and we ended up filing a motion to dismiss. And good cause eviction is now in effect in Kingston. You can no longer evict this family without cause. And it was the first decision in the state that anyone's aware of that actually dismissed a case for lack of good cause. So by passing that law, Kingston has essentially protected this woman and her children from eviction without cause. But without attorneys there to help her, she would have had no idea, and the judge can't step in and do this for her, that her apartment was protected by and Tasha has a lot more stories like that to share with you.
Yeah, so thank you. I'm Kasia Donahue. I'm the supervising attorney of the housing unit. It's my privilege to give you some stories about the clients we've represented. So in the courts, we've had great success bringing good cause as a defense with the positive results of people remaining in their house or home. In one case, our client and her teenage daughter were renting an apartment in a house that got sold. The new owners initiated eviction proceedings saying they wanted to move their in-laws in, which is an exception to good cause. Good cause, however, also provides an exception to that exception designed to protect disabled and elderly people. And in this case, our client had significant disabilities, including a terminal disease. We jumped into action, raising this as a legal defense in our pleadings to both court and counsel, and educating everyone on this good cause defense. Again, the exception to the exception. We subpoenaed the client's medical records, offering proof that our client was disabled. And realizing that they were not likely to win at a trial, the landlord wound up withdrawing the eviction proceeding, and our client and her daughter continued to remain housed in what they consider their family home. So the enforcement of good cause isn't all we do, of course. Our unit has not only prevented evictions, but also set our clients up for future financial success, and then in turn preventing future evictions. And I have a great example. And this is a good example of holistic or wraparound services, sometimes I call it. We had a client facing eviction from subsidized housing for non-payment of rent. He had fallen behind on his rent after losing his employment. We took a deep dive into his circumstances and really got to know him. And what we realized was that he likely qualified for disability benefits. That also explained why he was losing his job. So the housing unit assisted him, or legal services and the housing unit assisted him with his disability application, meanwhile seeking an emergency order to show cause. It's an emergency motion to the court, asking the court to delay the eviction. What we argued to the court was we just need a little bit more time for that disability benefit to come through, when then the apartment will be affordable. And therefore we can tap into our arrears, our internal legal services arrears to pay, grant money to pay the arrears. So we had great success. Judge Brown's and county court signed the order to show cause. Eviction was delayed, arrears were paid, disability benefits got into place, and he now remains in subsidized housing, which means, by the way, and you're probably all aware, but that his rent is based on his income. So it will remain affordable. I have a few more examples that I can keep going. Okay. So preserving long-term housing is our goal, even when it requires persistence and litigation. We represented a tenant and her disabled sons who were facing eviction from their home for non-payment of rent. They had lived in this house for 15 years. The mother, the mother of the household, our client, had worked as a home health aide, but suffered a series of disastrous events. She had a diagnosis of cancer, then a bout of homelessness and a car accident, all those things keeping her out of work, falling behind on rent. We assisted her in seeking funds from DSS as well as internal grant money to get assistance to pay her arrears. But in order for those checks to be cut, the landlords need to provide a W-9 form, which is a required tax document. The landlord refused. We went to trial, we lost, but we were not going to give up at that point. We continued to ask the W-9, ask the landlord for the W-9, because as I think Erin mentioned, As long as the money is paid before the sheriff executes a warrant, the eviction has to be canceled and the landlord would not cooperate. We brought an order to show cause, an emergency motion asking the court to stay the eviction, saying this is income discrimination. Delay the eviction until the landlord provides the forms. The court signed the order to show cause, and when a hearing was set, the landlord relented, provided the forms, the landlord was paid all the arrears, and our client continues to reside in her home of 15 years. As Erin mentioned, and I think maybe Christopher as well, we're committed to ensuring our clients reside in safe and habitable homes, and we offer representation outside and inside the courthouse. So as a sort of a quick example, we had a tenant contact us after he moved into his apartment and learned quickly that it was infested with rats. And I don't mean mice, I mean rats. They were nibbling on his toes at night. They were eating his food. He saw them both alive and dead in his apartment, and this is in the city of Kingston. We were able to negotiate an abatement, which is a rent reduction due to the conditions of the apartment. And in this case, because he had paid, it was in the form of a refund, and negotiate with the landlord to release him from his lease so he can move into a habitable home. Another story of mine, of one of my favorite tenants that I've represented, he's a senior who came to us because his landlord had passed away and he didn't know who to contact about the fact that he had no heat or hot water. After making contact with the landlord's estate, we were able to negotiate that the landlord's estate would not only make the necessary repairs, but also put him up in a hotel for the pendency of the repair period. I learned a lot about heat and hot water repair during this case, and I learned that it takes some time sometimes, and this was in the middle of the winter. After repairs were completed a few weeks later, by a stroke of luck, our client learned that he became eligible for a Section 8 based apartment, but he did have difficulties reading and writing. So with our assistance, we were able to help him complete those applications, work with APS to arrange moving, and now he's safely living in subsidized housing. And the last one, which is not such a good story, but it does tell you a little bit about the importance of preserving housing in Ulster County, is that many people, or at least I did before I started housing tenant defense, thought, well, if somebody becomes homeless, at least they'll be entitled to a shelter, have a roof over their head. And what I've learned through this practice is that the shelters are sometimes full, and placement is not a guarantee for individuals who become homeless. Just today, I was in contact with the Department of Social Services regarding a client who was forced to vacate their home due to uninhabitable conditions, which was a rodent infestation and mold. I was informed there was only one room remaining for all of Ulster County, and that room was located in a rural area with limited access to public transportation. Sorry to end on a down note, but I did want to provide the context of what happens if people don't remain housed. And I think at this point I can hand it to Jill.
Yeah, I mean, I think my team has really illustrated for you the work we've been doing under this program. The funding that we received allow us to really focus on this city court. We have housing funding and we do cover 7 counties, a multitude of courts. This court is particularly busy. In order for us to continue to focus on this court and focus the resources on this court, we would need the funding to continue. The county funding that we had ended several months ago, I mean in April, it was also ARPA funding, so it was not renewed at this point. So, this is work that we believe in. We're experts in this. Our impact is clearly felt. We've dedicated other resources, in-kind resources, which include financial assistance as well as paralegal assistance. We have a social worker, director of social work on staff that also helps with clients who have all types of needs that maybe attorneys are not attuned to, that can help us connect with resources. So we're hoping that we can find a way to continue this program and continue to work together. If you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer them.
I just want to say thank you very much. I work in human services. I work with all these families. So to hear the actual stories and the human stories and not just have a bunch of, numbers thrown at us. I really appreciate that all that the humanity gets conveyed. So thank you. I am curious if, I know you can't give it to us tonight, but at some point, if we can get like breakdowns of, as much data as you have about like where the evictions originated, say good cause evictions, if we know, precisely how many, what size buildings, things like that. So, we know that. What we
So
have.
I have a lot more data.
Yeah, okay.
Required reporting.
Okay.
And so maybe as a starting point, can send that over to this committee, and then
Okay.
if there's additional questions, I can
Great.
see if that information exists.
So, and then my second question is, I absolutely want this to continue. I want more people to, I don't want more people to be subject to eviction, I'll say that. But I want everyone to be covered. And I'm curious, how it worked that these clients found out about you. Did the court tell them, or did they have to find out on their own? So like, I know like the Right to Counsel program in New York City is legislated. So like, if they go to court, they have to return a lawyer, right? Like, so how does this work here?
So we do as much on the ground outreach as we can. We try to attend events. We're in contact with DSS, so get a lot of referrals from DSS and other departments. Family Woodstock refers to us. We also have flyers up in Kingston City Court, and we have staff that almost every week are in court. They give like a little spiel about where we're located and how to do anything if they need assistance. So we try to be as accessible as possible. So we refer people to us.
And Kingston City Court does provide a list of providers that I should get a hold of, because it is us as well as Hudson Valley Justice Center and Rural Law Center. And then I think it's Catholic Charities. And so I think it's all together, right? The organizations that can help with arrears assistance or other social services assistance, as well as legal advice.
But if they don't know about you yet, they go to court, like they have their first appearance and then they get the list, but it's
Right.
sort of behind the 8 ball in a way.
Yeah, it's a great question. So in housing court, under New York state law, you have a first appearance where if you raise a defense, you're entitled to an adjournment. At least 2 weeks per statute. Kingston City Court's practice is to adjourn for 2 weeks and 2 weeks only for an attorney. We do attempt to step in between the first and the second appearance. However, people are in a better place, have an advantage if they have an attorney at the first appearance. So that's a preference.
Right. But also to add to the answer to your question, I think the relationships we have with the community partners is important. So we make sure that we keep those relationships. We do know your rights in person and also virtually. So we try to spread the word as much as possible, because for us, it's great to get cases early as possible. So clients who, like you said, get to court the first time, hopefully we can get to them before then through the outreach that we've done in the community.
Thank you.
Okay. Actually, Michelle took my question I was going to ask, which is great. I'm sure she'd take all my questions, given the time limit. So I'll just make a couple comments here. It's really nice to see a group of people so enthusiastic about their jobs. I don't see that too much. So kudos to you guys for putting so much effort in this. I do want to say, a long time ago in a world far, far away, I worked at DSS, and there was nothing like this. I mean, the clients would come to me for help with their landlords and with rats and, everything else. And, I really wasn't well versed in that, I'm trying to help out. So there was nothing at all like this. This is really nice to see everybody working together for something like this. It was a big problem back then. I'm sure it's, immensely more of a problem now. But this is certainly a step in the right direction. Do you do regular outreach at DSS? Or they know about you and make referrals?
DSS does refer to us. I think we do have some flyers there as well. We have a working relationship with DSS and they will refer people to us.
It's actually this program that helps to even improve that relationship because we're all kind of working together to get the clients to remain housed. So we really fostered like a better relationship with them lately.
Yeah, and I think what's helpful is that when we're negotiating packages to pay rental arrears, we also come to the table with our internal funds that we use. So it's helped us to create a really good partnership with DSS in terms of payment of rental arrears.
Okay, Jean.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Your information is a fresh of breath air. Fresh breath of air, sorry. Bartek, do you have all their information that I could get from you? Like how I could get in contact with them or any flyers or something?
Yeah.
Okay, that's really what I wanted to know. I run the warming center for the city of Kingston for the county of Ulster. And I'd really like to have a sit down with you and an outreach maybe during the winter.
Yes, we would be very open to that. I do sit on the continuum of care with Bartek, and so I know some things about the warming center, and we try to be as available as we can.
Thank you very much for the work that you're doing. It's well appreciated.
Yeah, actually, I do have one more question, and you may have addressed it, right? Nobody needs a referral. They can just walk in to see you, right?
Yes, they can do intakes online. We have a simple intake department for the whole agency that has extended hours. We also, you can start the intake process like with your phone, there's a QR code and you can start it that way and then we'll follow up and finish.
But they can walk in.
Yeah.
Michael,
I was curious if you've had conversations with the county about continuing their support for the program and the rental assistance program?
Yes, we actually did meet with them prior to the termination of the previous contract, which was in April. So we met probably in like March or so. At the present time, because that was ARPA funding, they don't have funding earmarked for this. We're hoping that may change. I know that they're working on their budgets and things, but as of right now, we don't have continued funding for that. And we, as attorneys, we have cases that we have to keep whether our grants continue or not. So for that particular grant, we had about 80 cases at the end of the grant that we still kept that we weren't reimbursed for. So we're hoping that maybe there could be a partnership formed or something can happen where we can continue the funding. But as of right now, we haven't gotten that.
Thank you.
anyone else?
I don't have a question, but again, I just want to thank you for the work that you did because I've sent people to you from Stony Run, So, yes, various issues, variety of issues. And they've always been very grateful for your help. So thank you. And I'll continue sending people to you, I assume.
We
So
appreciate that. And it really is our privilege to represent these people.
Well, I mean, I guess I just want to chime in and emphasize what was said, which is that the funding for our program is set to similar to the county is also set to run out. And so I think, and also what I mentioned to this team is that we obviously need to be creative to think about how such a program could continue, right? Maybe refocus it, or we lower the income eligibility but continue the program in some way. So I think that's the main message for everyone to send to this committee and part of the reason why I invited legal services team.
So I have a question just to piggyback. So if we were to say, if you were to just focus on one case, one family, like I know it's no cases, an average typical thing, but what would the cost be like to stay for just like an eviction case?
I don't know how to answer that question. What I can say is that for us to maintain this program for 2 attorneys focused on city court would cost us about $300,000 for a year.
Would you be able to handle a higher number of cases than with that, or?
Well, currently, that's what we have, so
Yeah.
to maintain the services we currently have, that's what it would cost us. If we had less money and less attorneys dedicated, then obviously we would have to raise some things with deliverables based upon that.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Hey,
And if we do have any other questions that come up, to whom should we address that?
You can definitely contact me. Bartek is my information.
Okay,
And we will get you whatever information.
And I just want to make one clarifying point before we leave, just your question just occurred to me. So currently, right now, we're funded through March of next year. So for us to complete the funding for the rest of 2026, we have 225 for us for the year. So that would really be helpful to us as well, because we anticipate having, a ton of cases at the end of March that we still are gonna be representing on, because we're getting new cases every day, so. That's all.
thank you. Thank you.
So much.
thanks for being here.
Thank you for having us. Thank you for your time.
Bartek, do you need to screen share?
Yes, please.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah. Okay, so bringing back, we've discussed this idea of public mixed income development for a couple months now. I first presented this concept in July, and then as a follow-up, invited Paul Williams from the Center for Public Enterprise as well to answer additional questions. And so I don't, as a rule, I don't like leaving things hanging. And so I guess I'm looking for closure, right? Some kind of answer from this committee in terms of this concept. So I'm going to jump through these slides, which I've already gone over, and I just want to go through some of the feedback that I heard from this committee for the past couple of months. And so the first bit of feedback I heard was about tenant protections. So if we do create housing under this model, what rights and protections do the tenants have? And so the answer has been, once the nonprofit is established with a board and specific projects actually proposed, tenant protections can be integrated at the programmatic level. And we know this because this is what other jurisdictions that have pursued this model have done. Because of the public ownership structure, the nonprofit has the flexibility to embed and require such protections. I think another point is, will the tenants of these buildings have representation on this board? And I think, absolutely, right, board seats can be reserved for tenants. But we're many years from that, right? Number two is the funding sources for the revolving loan fund. As I described, a total of $12 million would need to be raised to support the equivalent of 200 housing units, right? And so the revolving loan fund itself could be scaled based on the projects at hand. Obviously, a variety of funding streams could be pursued. and the projects can be scaled to the resources that are available. But at this time, right, no City of Kingston funds are being requested. And in my view, any potential requests for public dollars would be considered a last resort for me. I think we should pursue other funding streams first before making that request. I think the third bit of feedback that I heard was whether there's sufficient housing demand in Kingston to justify this effort. I'd remind the committee that 6 developers did respond to my request for expressions of interest last year with interest to participate. And for comparison, Syracuse, all right, a city much larger than Kingston by many multiples, also received 6. So, right, I think there's a strong demand in this model here in Kingston. I also disagree with any premise that we don't have enough housing demand to justify this effort. But it's also true that any potential project, once proposed, will go through multiple levels of scrutiny to confirm, right, its feasibility. And then the last thing I'll add is that a couple of weeks ago, New York State actually released their own fund for mixed income development. It's called the Housing Acceleration Fund. And I think what's great about this fund is that, if we had a nonprofit established and there was some funds in our revolving fund, this is actually a new source of state funds that we could tap into to match the funding we have available in Orange. So I think it's great to know that New York State is also serious about the concept of mixed income development. That's all I have. Feedback, thoughts, any additional questions?
Is information about that New York State Housing Acceleration Fund available?
Yeah, so I can,
Because it's, right.
yeah, so I can forward this.
Yeah, it sounds
But it's essentially an RFP for this fund. At this point, they're not at the point where they're looking for specific projects. They're looking for kind of lenders to help them execute on the fund.
Oh, lenders, so they don't have an initial, they haven't been capitalized yet.
So it is capitalized, but they're looking for lenders to kind of match the funding that they have and to actually execute on the program, like to actually carry out.
Right. And so another question I have is when you talk about other funding streams, what are some of those funding streams that you've sort of imagined or that you're aware of that other?
Right. So I mean, I think some of the examples I gave previously, many communities have bonded for their funding. Again, that's not what I'm looking for. In the case of Chattanooga, right, they use their entire ARPA allotment to capitalize the fund. That ship has sailed, right? Right? But I guess the point is what other third-party sources could be? We could seek, right, that are interested in pursuing what's kind of like a really innovative, kind of on the cutting edge model for creating new housing. And so, that would be my goal. Seek outside sources, capitalize this fund rather than bonding or seeking some kind of budget allocation.
And I have another question too. The other question is really, you talked about having seats on the board for tenants. How do you envision the board being sort of composed initially? And then how it would change? Who would sit on the board?
Yeah, I mean, I think
Eventually.
for my view of the board is that it should be, we're trying to build housing, right? So these are individuals that need to have some expertise in the area of finance that could really advise on what it takes to presently this together. Right? We need expertise. And then I think obviously, when a project is opened, right, I think having the tenant input is also critical because this is what worked in, this is how the actual operations are going, this is what worked in the design, right? This is how having like a mixing community is going, right? So these are obviously important things, but in my view, think the board should be. These are individuals that have expertise in specifically in the area of housing and finance.
Right, and how would those board members be invited? Would it be through the city? Would it be through council suggesting people? How do you see that happening?
I think it would be a mix, most likely, so that there's some balance. So some from the mayor, some from the council, some perhaps the board itself votes on for appointing, right? There's a number of ways that board members could be appointed, but I don't envision it would be one person decide, right? One person or one entity appointing.
Saying these are the people, right?
Yeah.
And is it just, I guess my last question would be that, would this be available, if we're passing a resolution to support this, would it be possible to indicate some of those sort of specifics of what the board would look like and other things?
So the committee can, if it likes, right, say, we support this concept in general, and then here are some of the things that we'd like to see as part of this concept. Right, so whether that be board members or, other features of this concept.
Okay, that's my last.
But, I haven't heard specifics on that,
Okay.
other than the feedback I listened.
So this is where you'll lose me. The idea that we would just say we're okay with the vibe of this without us specifically creating the statute to allow this to happen is a non-starter for me. I think that we should, if the mayor gets to appoint seats, I think we should be approving all seats. I think it should be set out in the code. I just think there's too much still up in the air for me to say yes to this at this moment, even though I do think that ultimately a version of this is what we need. But I'm still concerned about, flexibility and tenant protections are words that do not go together for me. And I just think there's still too much up in the air, and I'm concerned about if we're seeking outside funds, does that mean we give up certain control over this project? I can't vote to push this forward, even as a vibe.
Okay.
I'm in the same place. I feel like if we are creating something from scratch, we have the ability to do something really amazing. And by just not including tenant protections and keeping it at a programmatic level, I don't think we're going far enough. This is the ability to go far, ability to be creative. I brought up with you a few months back that New York City has 421A, and I forget the version that it's called now, where they have ETPA in brand new construction. So we have a lot of tools to move forward in a big way. And I feel like we're giving up way too much. I think it's a lot of risk still. I feel like we're then reinventing the wheel where we could be using the housing authority or the land bank, something that's already been doing similar work. We still don't know what the tax abatement policy would look like. I just think it's not clear at all. And I can't go back to my constituents and sell this to them because we don't have enough here. So.
Okay.
Right.
I have one question. I'm sure we covered this, just kind of refresh my memory. When you said we had 6 developers contact us, how were they made aware of this? Did we solicit certain developers? How did they become aware of this?
I published the opportunity widely, and I tried to send it around to networks that I have of developers, and so that's how they were made aware. And we did a press release, right? We tried to take the average around.
Okay.
I will say I would like to know more about where the state is at with this fund and how far along they are and the fine details of it. So
Sure.
thank you.
Jeannie has her hand up, you guys can't see.
Oh, sorry.
So I appreciate what I'm hearing. I really appreciate, the points that Michelle and Michael are making.
Jeannie, you muted yourself.
Sorry, I think you guys are headed in the right direction. I love that we're gonna build more housing. But we do need a complete packet to explain all the ins and outs of it. The more housing we get, the more competition we get, the lower the prices will come down on housing. I went to a couple of housing meetings in Newburgh and one up in Hudson. And we all seem to have the same problem, but we seem to be moving the fastest, which I really appreciate our city. I like what you bring into the table, Bartek. But we do, we just need who's on the board? Like, where's the funding? I love that we have 6 people wanting to bite at the bit to build more housing. I love that the city's going to get involved in building housing. It shows that the constituents are really being heard. And we are moving as quick as we can. So I think just once you put the whole pie in front of us, I think it's going to pass unanimously. I love that we're going to protect the tenants. The city of Kingston is hearing the voices of the constituents. And that I really appreciate. We just have a few loose ties here. So how quick can we fix that? That's my question is, how quick are we going to put a board together? That's no matter what we do in life. I try to, do a 501c3 myself and everything. You have to have a board in place, and that's really the number one thing. I think once that happens, I can't see why we're not going to do it.
Okay.
We have a bunch of new buildings going up. We have people biting at the bit. We have housing that's being addressed. I think that we're about the only ones that are really going at it this strong. And for the city to get involved and say, no, we're going to build more and we're going to do more. It's fabulous. I love it. I'll be honest with you. I'm on you with this one. But they also have very good point. We can't dismiss the questions, but I'm behind you on this. I think you're going to head in a good direction.
Michelle?
I'm just gonna say this out loud. It feels like there's a plan and we're not being told what it is, honestly. It feels like you guys, like you and the mayor's on here, it feels like that what is going to happen and we're the last to know. That's how it feels. So I have to put it out there.
I've been coming to this committee for the past 3 months, right? Sharing everything I know about this model, right? Inviting Paul Williams. So there's no plan that's excluding the council. I mean, I've been very transparent about what I'm trying to do.
It feels though that there's an idea or a project that's in mind.
Oh, a specific project?
Yeah.
There's no specific project.
Anyone else?
Okay, well, I appreciate the feedback. Again, I wanted to close the loop, right? Given that I think the last time we discussed this was when Paul Williams was here, so we didn't have a chance to debrief. So I appreciate the feedback. To Jeannie's point, right? It is my intention, right, to pursue this model. We obviously need new housing. I see this as one way to get that with cities involvement. So thank you.
So can we move forward with it? Are you going to move forward with trying to?
Yes, I mean,
Because you have been coming for 3 months, and I have to say, I did feel that way that Michelle expressed. I did feel that way, but I'm seeing the consistency of the answering, the consistency of you coming, the consistency of answering questions every time we throw out of it. And I'm feeling pretty comfortable the more and more I see it. And like I said, the faster we get housing going, the constituents in the city of Kingston, I should just say everyone in the city of Kingston is that all eyes are on the city now. And we're moving and shaking, and to go to other cities and hear about them dragging feet, we're not doing that. And I'm so proud of our city after I went to these meetings. I really was, but I do appreciate the questions being asked, but I am behind this on you with you, Bartek. I just would like to see a little bit,
Yeah, I mean, my original plan was to pass the memorializing resolution, right? Even though, as I've admitted, I don't have all the details at this point. If the committee doesn't feel comfortable passing the memorializing resolution, that's fine. I will still pursue this model, and obviously, at some point, we'll have to come back to the council. So.
And I would say the more, specifics that you can provide, the easier it will be for us to get excited about it.
Sure.
We want you to.
We want,
Like, I think that's, yeah.
we want, yes,
We just want it to be perfect.
Okay.
or as close to perfect as it can be. And it might help to see what, you've already presented what other cities do, but I think looking at the New York State Acceleration Fund, just seeing some other models and how they put together their boards and, that would be really helpful. But
how long would it take you to put together a board?
I don't think it takes, I mean, again, as I mentioned to Sarah, I think, right, same kind of individual needs to be on this board at this point, right, that has the expertise that is needed to make a project like this happen. And so, potentially you could have a smaller board, right, and then slowly kind of fill it with additional seats, right, and all that.
Just, food for thought, governance and stuff like, do they need to be Kingston residents? Do they need to be Ulster County residents? Do they need to just work in Kingston? I would still like us to approve all of the mayor's appointments. Like those kinds of things are what I really want answers to. I'm confident that of some of those other things, but it's the governance and it's the baked in tenant protections for me.
thank you for your
Thank you.
And thank you for bringing in the legal services of Hudson Valley personnel, so. We can see that.
Okay. We have some old business on the
Right.
agenda. That's you.
Right, that
You're
was
not
sort
the
of,
old business. but-
I'm not,
Easy there.
well, I'm getting older all the time. Every day I get older, but I'll never catch up with you.
Yeah. Jeez. Isn't that something, huh?
But, so this was basically sort of taking a look at the regulatory agreement.
Mhm.
And, in light of the comments, so just to let everybody know what, sort of where we come to this point, I had reached out to corporate counsel, had, tried to see what, we had some questions, right? At the last meeting that I sent around to everyone, questions about the reserve fund, have we received reports? It's been 2 years, over 2 years since this agreement was signed. So I think the question is, what role does the city have to play, in this? Do we have any role? What, this is new, especially for someone like me who was not on the council, when the regulatory agreement was discussed and passed. So I reached out to corporate counsel, and Barbara had suggested that, we invite the mayor and the representative from Acre Companies to come and just talk to us about it. And as the members of this committee have seen, Mike Amato from Acre Companies had said that he won't come. He's been advised not to do a public presentation, but he's happy to speak to people individually. I could see that Mayor Noble is here because he was another person we were going to ask about the follow-up on the regulatory agreement, and also our council, just what are the city's obligations, is this something that we have any obligation to do? Is there anything that we
don't
know? We don't oversee.
We're not supers in it. Essentially, we've entered into this regulatory agreement, which allows for, Study Run to continue to receive other sorts of funding. And the controller can request, proof of the account. We can't, become their accountants and say you should be spending money this way or that way.
That's right.
I believe Bartek has gotten the rent rules, 19A work. So we're pretty hands off in terms of what we do.
What about the tax abatements situation?
I don't have the answer to that right now.
Because my understanding of 580, that whole regulatory agreement is a tax abatement situation. So like, I know when you go look at their assessments, they've gone way down. Just curious how long that would last, or is that the length of their?
I don't have the answer to
Okay.
that.
Mary, so.
And
Hi.
here's our mayor. Hi,
Mr.
Steve.
Mayor. Hi, Mayor.
I don't know if that was a question, but I think that we have many properties in the city that take advantage of the New York State tax law under 581A. 581A allows properties that have regulatory agreements to be able to have their assessments be based on, in essence, their income and not based on the market value of the property, which is a way for affordable housing providers to be able to provide affordable housing and be able to do so at a discounted tax rate, based on the fact that generally affordable housing providers receive less income than a traditional market rate housing unit. And so as part of any regulatory agreement, in order to qualify for the New York State 581A program, they need to be able to provide the assessor of their taxing jurisdiction with all of that, basically profit, loss, expenses, all of their financial records to be able to then have the city assessor determine how much revenue is, income is generated. And then that formula presents itself to then being the kind of the assessed value of the property. And so that's what I know about the program. If you have more specifics about how 581A works, you may want to speak with Dan Baker the next time he's in front of you. But that is, something that is in this and all of anyone that has a regulatory agreement.
Thank you.
You're probably familiar also with the 581A numbers when Dan Baker comes to you with a pilot arrangement. And so he will generally give you both the 581A number. So if the affordable housing unit was to go with that program, what the city would get paid in essence versus the pilot payment and what the city would get paid. And then you all are able to take that into consideration when you're determining whether to approve a pilot or not. Generally, that's just all part of that decision-making process.
Right, the pilot is fixed and 581 is variable, so.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Michael.
I understand all that, but I think that not to speak for our colleague here, but the purpose is that they got these benefits because they needed to provide, upkeep their building, and stuff like that, which we've heard time and time again from the residents there, that obligation is not being fulfilled.
I mean, I would say that, Michael, that's your opinion, but our building department is the determining factor of whether someone is able to, meet the New York State requirements for, our building conditions. And anytime that there's been a complaint received, it has gone to the building department. If one is sent in, and the building department then goes and investigates, and then if a fine or violation is necessary, they will, provide that. I'm not sure if you've had asked the building department if there are any open or outstanding violations at this moment, but that's also something that the council could do. Or you could look on the city's website where we list all of the violations and whether they're open or closed for different properties in the city.
But in terms of sort of the reserve account and some of the questions that came up last time, that's not something that we have any say so over, because this is, we're not a party to this. So there's whether or not the company is maintaining reserve fund and using it for repairs.
So
Is that?
I feel I could speak to that too. That was one of your questions, Sarah. And so again, that is something that Dan Baker has access to because the reserve account is a part of their income and expenses. And so that reserve account has been documented. They have done exactly what they were supposed to do with the reserve account. We have those figures and that data, as well as all of any expenses that have been drawn down out of that have to be provided to us. And so that is also part of their financial records, which we have and are available.
Okay, so is that something that I could talk to Dan Baker about?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. Any other?
I'm good. Thank you for bringing this back.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Mayor. So. And if any other questions come up, we'll let you know.
And issues with property maintenance, you know, though the city can't step in, that might be something where LSHB can handle. You know, and of course, building and safety. So
Yeah, and I've been in touch with both of them.
I know you've been working diligently.
So, and they've been helpful. It's. So I think that's it. I think you can sign off, Mayor Noble.
All right. Thank you all. Have a good night.
Yeah.
Have a good night.
Okay, and sadly, we have come to the point where I will take a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
Anybody opposed to that? Not likely. Okay, meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
You don't have three on?
Thank you.
You know?
If they're in the box, yes, they
Okay.
have three.
Oh,
Those are the ones down there you thought, yeah.
Oh, this one needs another. Meditation.
And it is true that I have a lot of conversations with both building safety and with lower, yes, legal services of Hudson Valley.
As we all know.
As we all do, right?
Yeah.
Are we signed off? I mean, are we muted?
Looks like we're still. Do I press leave?